Fidelity says to invest 15% of your income to have enough money for retirement. Vanguard says invest 12 to 15%. And Charles Schwab gives you a range based on the age you start. What do they all have in common? They're wrong and potentially setting you up for failure. Let me show you why and what to do instead. Look, rules of thumb are great because they give us simple, easy to remember guidelines that help us make decisions very quickly without getting bogged down in the complex details. For instance, I think a health savings account is one of the best things created since hot dogs on a stick. And from a tax savings perspective, a good rule of thumb is to max that account out before putting any money into something like a Roth IRA. However, while this rule is helpful, it isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. Personal circumstances, goals, and financial situations vary from person to person. What works for one individual might not make sense for another. Therefore, it's essential to use rules of thumb as a foundation, but be prepared to adapt and refine them based on your unique needs and experiences. As I said before, many of these large investing institutions mention the 15% rule of thumb for how much you should set aside every month as a benchmark for financial security and retirement. But I'm a weirdo who wants to know how all of these sausage is made, so I looked into how they came up with this number. Now, Fidelity is the only one I found that shares its sausage recipe and cites specific research on how they came up with that number. They suggest that investing 15% of your gross income, including your employer match, will support an annual income replacement rate of 45% of your pre-retirement income through age 93. Fidelity's research, based on the Consumer Expenditure Survey, found that the 45% income replacement target is fairly consistent across salary ranges of $50,000 to $300,000. So if your pre-retirement income is $100,000 per year, then Fidelity says you'll need to be able to replace $45,000 of it through withdrawals from your retirement accounts. And the 15% rule will get you there. Some of you might be scratching your head thinking that $45,000 in retirement may not be enough to live on. But keep in mind that Social Security wasn't included here, so they're assuming you'll be getting that as well to help cover expenses. If Social Security is, say, $2,000 per month, then that gives you a yearly spend of about $70,000. One thing to stress here is that it assumes 15% is being invested and not saved. So this money shouldn't be put into a savings account collecting dust while you scroll TikTok. It needs to be invested into a broadly diversified index fund or ETF portfolio. Investing the money instead of putting it into a savings account is probably pretty obvious to a lot of you, but I was listening to a local radio show the other day, and there were people calling in saying that if you win $1 million, you should put it all into a savings account because you get a guaranteed 5% return on your money. Yeah, this is how some people think, so I need to clearly state that the money should be invested. Before I tell you about the biggest problem with the 15% rule, I want to thank Babbel for sponsoring this video. Babbel is the world's first and best-selling language learning app. It's like having a personal language coach in your pocket on your phone or in the comforts of your home on your computer. Babbel's lessons are put together by over 650 real language experts, so you end up learning practical, everyday conversations really quickly. Babbel has also been scientifically proven by researchers at major universities and institutions to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. There are quite a few languages to choose from, but I've personally chosen to learn Spanish. I just learned Aprendo Español, which means I'm learning Spanish. Babbel doesn't only teach you individual words, it teaches you how to incorporate them into phrases and when to use them like this. For example, instead of just learning the word basura, which is trash in Spanish, Babbel would teach you how to use it in a real-life conversation. So when it's garbage day and the bin needs to be taken out to the street, I can say to my dog, "Hey Molly, por favor, saca la basura," so she knows it's time for her to do her daily chores. Are you gonna do them? Okay. If you're planning a trip to a different country soon, Babbel can help you speak like a local in as little as 10 minutes a day. Let me know in the comments below which language that you'd like to learn and why. Check out the link below to get 60% off your subscription to Babbel, which is one of the top language learning apps in the world. While this 15% rule has its advantages because it's extremely simple to understand, it does have some limitations. First, according to Fidelity, it assumes someone starts at age 25 with $0 and retires at age 67. 67? In this economy, if we assume that 25-year-old is a recent college graduate and he's earning the median salary of $50,000 in a place like Charlotte, North Carolina, then he'd be investing 15%, which is a little over $600 per month, and slowly increasing that as he earns more money over time. The problem is if you're older than 25, which to be honest, most of my audience is, then you're going to end up going broke for the rest of your life by trying to follow this rule. I'm just kidding, you won't go broke, but you may have to make some extremely uncomfortable lifestyle changes that could have been avoided by running the numbers like I'm going to show you later in the video. The second limitation is unpredictable market conditions. We're all kind of guessing what our average annual stock market returns will be going forward. We can look at rolling returns of different time periods in the past, but if you assume something like a 13% average annual return, as we've seen over the past 10 years, and it comes in lower, then you might have some catching up to do. On the other hand, you might even get to a point in the future where your expected rate of return happens to be higher than what you planned for an extended period of time. At that point, you may even be able to reduce the percentage of your income that you are investing for retirement. I talked to one person who was really bothered by the fact that she saved so much over the years because she had way more money than she thought she would. She felt like she had missed out on being able to spend more during those years. But here's the thing, after going through why she was saving as much as she did, which to be honest wasn't an outrageous percentage of her income, it was all based on logic. The market just happened to perform way better than anyone could have predicted, and she was able to benefit from all of it. This sort of thinking is a psychological fallacy called resulting. It's where you judge the quality of a decision based solely on its outcome rather than on the information and process that led to the decision before you knew the results. It assumes that a good outcome must have resulted from a good decision, and a bad outcome from a bad decision. In reality, outcomes can be influenced by factors outside of your control, such as luck or external events. Imagine getting bothered, not because you had a poor outcome, not because you had an outcome that you expected, but because you got a better than expected outcome. Another limitation is the normal ebbs and flows we all deal with throughout our lives. They don't play out like some numbers that we type into a spreadsheet and thinking that you're going to adhere to the same static investment rate between now and retirement is about as insane as warming up a bowl of milk before pouring cereal into it. Ideally, you never reduce your monthly retirement contributions to pay for other things, and you pay for it all with money that you've saved up over time. But sometimes life just happens and you do not have a choice. Things like trying to get your high interest bad debt paid off as soon as possible because you know that it's destroying your wealth building abilities. Paying for car or home repairs that cost more than you expected. Losing a job, having a baby, or getting divorced for the 10th time like I have. Yeah, try having to split all of your money in half 10 different times. I'm gonna need to invest 150% of my income just to catch up or start selling plasma like me and my buddies did in college. In all seriousness, there are going to be times throughout life when the percentage you invest needs to be backed down temporarily. Yeah, in a perfect world, it would be a straight line going up, but it might just end up looking like a squiggly line going up. Before I walk you through how to calculate the amount you need to save every month, I want to give you an idea of the percentage some Vanguard 401k and 403b customers are saving. If we look at it broken down by income, even at the highest income level, the average person is contributing less than the 15% recommended by Fidelity for 25-year-olds with $0 saved. These numbers include an employer match as well. When it's broken down by age, every range is in the double digits except for people younger than 25. Finally, the percentage of income contributed based on the account balance just goes way up as more money accumulates in the accounts. Getting to these large balances just takes time since these accounts are limited to the maximum that you can contribute every year. So we can assume the people with the highest contribution rates and the largest balances have been working for quite a few years. One thing to keep in mind is that since this data only looks at 401k and 403b holdings, some of these investors could be saving a higher percent of their income if they're investing in other retirement accounts like a traditional or Roth IRA. A research paper from 2022 found that 75% of households who own an IRA also own defined contribution retirement plans like a 401k or 403b. Just for fun, I put up a poll on my YouTube community tab to see how much people are saving. If these people are all telling the truth, then wow, there are more super savers than I would have expected. Since the amount you need to set aside every month is going to be wildly different for each of us, let's hop into my laptop to walk through how to think about and to measure it along the way to make sure that you are on track. Before I share my screen, just a heads up that I personally use New Retirement, which is a retirement planning software. They do offer a free trial, which you can sign up for using my link in the description of this video. Now that link does help support this channel at no extra cost to you. But if you want to do it on your own, then here's how I would get a simple high-level view without using something like retirement planning software or talking to a financial planner. Okay, here's a quick spreadsheet that I created. We're going to assume that someone is 30 years old, so they're going to retire in 2061 at age 67. Just going to assume that he makes $65,000 per year gross, no retirement savings. Now, one thing Fidelity did say is that at 25, you want to save 15% of your income. If you start at 30 with no retirement savings, you actually want to bump that 15% up to 18%. And then they said at 30, if you start at 35 with no retirement savings, you want to bump it up to 23%. So the longer you wait, the more that you have to save of your income just to catch up. Because of that, let's increase this 15% to 18% so we can get an idea of what's going on here. Now, as you can see, I'm expecting a 7% average annual return with a variance plus and minus 2%. So average return expectations, $1.8 million. If you end up with an average annual return of 2%, below 7%, so 5%, then you're looking at 1.1 million. If you get 2% above that 7%, so 9%, you're looking at about $3 million. And down below here, I do have the safe withdrawal rate based on the 4%, just to get some high level math and give you an idea of, okay, how much can I withdraw at this point in time in 2061? Now you might look at $1.8 million and you're like, Jarrad, that's just not going to be enough in 2061. But you have to keep in mind, if you keep the percentage the same, of how much you are contributing of your income, the dollar amount is going to be increasing over time as well. So this $1.8 million that you're seeing, don't get too freaked out when you put your numbers in, because as long as you are working towards increasing your income, these numbers are going to get higher. So let me show you what that looks like. Let's say this individual, let's say this year he's making $65,000, but next year he's going to get a $5,000 raise. So he's going to increase his income to $70,000. So let me show you what that math looks like. And let me paste this right here so you can get an idea, or we can remember what it is so you can do the comparison. All right, so then his current balance after the first year is going to be $11,700. Let's paste that there. And that means he's going to be increases his income, $70,000, and he's actually going to be 1 year closer to retirement. So this money is going to be invested for 36. All right, so then that increases to $2.9 million. So look at this comparison. As long as an individual is increasing their income, right? So that $1.8 million you saw, you're like, oh my gosh, that's not going to be enough for retirement. But remember, as long as you are increasing it, you should be a little closer to okay than what you're seeing in the initial screenshot. I don't have a spreadsheet that accounts for increasing your income by a certain percentage every year. If someone knows how to create one or wants to create one for me, I'd be more than happy to pay you for it. But if you were concerned about how money is going to be devalued over time, which I agree, that's something to be concerned about, we can actually bake that into these numbers. So let's say that inflation we're expecting it to be average out to 3% per year, which is fairly reasonable. All you have to do is take the average annual return that you're expecting and drop it by whatever you think inflation is going to be. So if we say it's going to be 3%, then that brings us down to a net 4% average annual return over time. And this is what the numbers look like. Right now we're looking at, okay, in today's dollars, we're looking like in 2060, you're going to have, or 2061, you're going to have $1 million. So, and that's a $41,000 withdrawal rate. Now, once again, those numbers might freak you out, but as long as you're increasing your income, these numbers are going to go up, right? The total balance and the amount that you can withdraw every year. And also keep in mind that this isn't accounting for Social Security, which most of us young people are going to have something in Social Security. Do we know exactly how much? I don't know. And if these numbers do concern you, you can always work on increasing the amount or increasing the percentage that you're saving as well. So hope isn't all lost when you look at these numbers and you start to get concerned. One other thing I want to mention is I know some of you have issues with a 7% average annual return, me expecting that. And, if you look at history, I would agree to an extent over a long period of time. If we look at these average stock market returns during different 30-year rolling periods, you see that it's 12%, 11%, 12, 11, 11. I mean, it's higher than the 7%. Even if you go to different 20-year rolling periods, I mean, they're all at or above 7%. Now, if you get down to the 15-year period, you start to see, okay, there's some time periods where it's in the 11, 10, 12% range, average annual return range, but then there's going to be rolling periods where you are below that 7% average annual return. But I personally just like to underplan and hope for the best, right? That way you're ready for any situation that pops up. But if you are someone who's like, I want to expect higher average annual returns, go for it. But it's your money, and I'm not your daddy, so you can do what you want. So while investing 15% of your gross income for retirement is helpful, it's one of those rules of thumb that needs to be evaluated against your personal situation to see if it holds up. Hit that thumbs up button before you go, and check out the description for a lot more helpful resources when it comes to retirement planning, investing, and personal finance. I'll see you in the next one, friends. Done.